Welcome to Is Anybody Listening to Me podcast with Azar and the Meat. This is what I'm excited to say, our third consecutive weeks in a row. Big Meat and I are recording, so we're getting into a rhythm. We're still in the NFL season, so we're excited to talk about the past weekend's divisional games and our predictions. And Meat's going to do a little "I told you so" dance for us and rubbing it in. And to make this NFL discussion worthwhile, we did bring in our third man in. He's finally in. He's no longer on baby duties. He's ready to jump in and help us discuss the NFL. And we're also going to discuss, without the help of Jarvis, is WandaVision. That's an exciting thing for entertainment. We're really excited to talk about that. And as usual, we're going to dive into the NFL fantasy season. And we're going to keep talking about different topics. And the topic of choice this week is top quarterbacks for 2021. All right, let me bring in my my partner in crime, Big Meat. How's it going, Big Meat?
It's going well, and welcome, Jarvis. Welcome back to the podcast here. We missed you.
Boy, did I miss being here with you guys. It is a long time coming. I am glad to be back.
The fact that we're doing the top 5 quarterbacks, and of course, I just want to get your thoughts on where Aaron Rodgers is going to go in the fantasy draft. That's the only reason why we invited you back, because Azar touched on, we're going to talk a little bit about WandaVision. Now, the fact that it's on Disney Plus, you do not have Disney Plus, so that means you haven't even watched Mandalorian, which is a crime in itself. So, I'm looking forward to the questions that you will have to ask for us when it comes to WandaVision, because I'm curious to answer those.
Guilty as charged, I do regret the Mandalorian thing. Like I will watch it. I don't have Disney Plus yet. Somebody promised me their account to watch it, never followed through, but I'm not as cheap as some raccoons that listen on this, and I wouldn't pester the person to then share. However, I will say maybe I'll hold out on Mandalorian until Roper watches Indiana Jones.
There you go. You'll never watch Mandalorian if that's the case.
That is out of pure stubbornness that he's not watching Indiana Jones. There's no rational reason. No rational human being.
We have to kidnap him one day and just tie him to a chair and just force him.
Anytime
to
he blinks, have his eyelids electrocute himself.
That's right.
Just hook him up to some shocks.
But Azar, clearly you and I did not hype up Mandalorian enough on these podcasts for Jarvis to watch us, or maybe he's just not listening to us when he's not on. Maybe he's not listening to the podcast.
So this is as bad as someone saying, I don't even know what the Tiger King is. I never watched the Tiger King. Who hasn't watched the Tiger King, right? Which there was a rumor that I thought, I don't know if it happened, that Trump was supposed to parole or give a pardon to our boy Tiger King, but I don't know if that ever came up. I was listening to the news today. I didn't hear
a list of names yet. He may be in the list of names.
Oh, I did read something today that the Tiger King had set up a limousine outside. He's got it ready just in case Trump pardons him from now until tomorrow. Yeah, I swear I read that today.
That is so awesome. Yeah. So
keeping his hopes up.
I don't know. All we could do is hope that Mrs. Jarvis, maybe she'll hear this podcast and say, we don't have Disney Plus, and just feel sorry for him and green light it for him. Just say, look, what are you doing? Get it. We need you.
Michael, listen, if it's not, I'm not being prevented from accessing it. Let's just say
I'm not
that.
saying you're being prevented. She's probably wondering, what are you doing?
I just figured my son is only 7 months old, right? I have a little bit of time before it becomes coherent in listening to watching TV. And right now he's just, whenever a song comes on, his head whips around and it doesn't even matter what song it is. He's just in. So I'm riding the free wave of TV that I already pay a lot of money. It's not so free. It's Comcast and it's freaking expensive. So why add to it until he's once he says, I want to watch The Lion King. Okay, Disney Plus. Here we go.
Because all those cool cartoons are on Disney Plus. I mean, what are you doing to the poor kid? You're already starting them on. What are you? You're training them on PBS cartoons? The only thing on PBS
Disney
that's worth
Junior.
watching is Curious George.
No, we got Disney Junior. We got
but there you go.
And we got Puppy Dog Pals and
Disney
Doc
Junior is all on. All those things are on demand on Disney Plus.
But I have to pay more for them when I already have.
Oh my God! This is where you're going cheap. Maybe one less McCollin a year. That's it.
My wife is going to listen and be like, Azar, I've never loved you so much in my life. Preach.
You're denying your poor wife and your son the opportunity to watch quality entertainment because for no reason. This is like a Mr. Roper excuse. This is dragging your feet. Even Mr. Roper has bought Disney Plus.
Well,
for his family.
Then again, I to defend Jarvis here, he's sacrificing quality programming for quality whiskey or scotch.
It's true.
There you go.
Who make that priority? That's an R3 thing to do. That would be an R3 thing to do, to get that excuse to say that. So for your poor wife and your child, just get Disney Plus. Give them the entertainment. Stop.
You might have just convinced me to go put me over the edge.
I expect that from the raccoon to make that type of logic. Like, I'm waiting. I'm like, no, just even Jarvis, look at the class you're in. Roper and the raccoon have got Disney Plus.
I can't be in that class.
Okay? And think about it. You're the only one in the group who does it. I even think Antifa Boy, who is probably pirating it somehow,
That's right.
has got it.
From his cousin.
It comes free with his social service monthly installment. He gets an Obama phone and Disney Plus from Biden.
Yes. I'm just feeling for your family. I'm speaking out on behalf of them. That you got to just step it up as a man here. Do the father thing and just order the stupid Disney Plus. Spend the bottle of whiskey on So what? You got to drink Jim Beam for 1 month. Big deal. Jim Beam vanilla. Look at Big Me. Look how he lives.
I was gonna say
so good.
Jim Beam vanilla. You cannot go wrong with that. It is delicious.
You're right. Jim Beam vanilla is so good.
I didn't even think about it. The more I think about it, that you aren't even in the same class as Roper and the raccoon. Like they both have.
I've watched Indiana Jones, and B, I enjoy flavor. Both things trump me over those two.
There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about that.
But the Disney, you're right about the Disney Plus thing. I don't have a good defense for that. I don't.
None. All right, good.
Nope. Guilty as charged.
All right, little mini Jarvis will finally get some real entertainment.
He thanks you.
All right, so let's focus on the divisional rounds. The NFL. It was an okay weekend of football. I thought. I don't know. Most of the feedback I've heard on the radio and talk radio that the Bucs game and the Saints game was probably the most entertaining. I don't know. I thought the Packers game was interesting for a little bit, and then it got what we expected. I don't know. The Bills and the Ravens. It was okay. I don't know. They were okay games, and then
I missed the whole opportunity there to mention that from our predictions from last week, Azar, that 4-0.
Yeah, you went 4-0.
Predict the Bucs.
Yeah,
4-0. Well, we both picked all the same teams to win.
Yep.
And we did call it in terms of what games were going to be close and which ones were not. They were tough to call. Which one was the first game? It was the Packers-Rams, right?
Yes.
And we said, well, the Rams don't have a shot, and they lost 32-18. To me, that's 2 touchdowns. That's a sizable margin there to lose by. Rodgers looked, unstoppable again. The Packers offense looked unstoppable. So we called that.
Can you say that again into the good microphone?
I know. So Jarvis is.
You've been calling me out for this for a long time. I am just going to enjoy this one.
They do. They look. I mean, I've been saying they look great the last 6 weeks, and they just seem like their offense is on another level. But then let's go back to go to the Ravens and Bills. That was kind of close up until the end. Like we kind of called it. Then Jackson got hurt, right? And then it was the Bill. They just couldn't. They couldn't move the ball. By the way, wasn't RG3? Isn't he on the Ravens? Wasn't it RG3?
Didn't he get hurt?
That's why I was fully expecting RG3 to come in after he got hurt. I go, oh. And then there was another guy in there. I don't forget his name.
The most fragile backup quarterback in the history of the NFL. He couldn't stay as a healthy starter. So they bring him in as a backup, and he can't even stay healthy as a backup. Like, it's awful.
Yeah.
It's awful.
Yeah. So anyway, they ended up. So the Bills ended up winning, and then of course the Chiefs, even without Mahomes, most of the second half, which
Henny,
man, they almost blew it. I mean, the Browns could have easily beat them, but now the Chiefs pulled it off, and then of course came down to the Bucs and Saints, which was a great game up until the end, and Drew Brees just kind of imploded there, threw a bunch of interceptions. So So I'm sticking to my guns here. I'm still saying Bucs Packers. I think Bucs are going to win. I think the Bucs are going to take. I think he's going to take out Aaron Rodgers. Even with, I read today that Antonio Brown, who I didn't realize got hurt in that second half and didn't play for most of the half because of a knee injury. They said he wasn't it wasn't a serious knee injury, but it's enough that he's day to day. He might miss the game. Who knows? That could affect it, but still, I'm still sticking with it. I still think the Bucs are going to go all the way this year.
Now,
I think it's meant to be the fact that they're playing in Tampa. They're going to be the first team to ever win a Super Bowl in their hometown.
So this is where I disagree with you, and maybe Jarvis has a different perspective. When you watch that Bucs game, it feels to me the only reason Tampa was scoring is, and I think if I'm not wrong, all the scoring was done after a turnover for New Orleans. Like when it wasn't a turnover, they weren't really moving the ball. The defense was actually keeping Tampa in check. And then when they had a turnover, they seemed to score on those drives one way or another. So if Drew Brees didn't have the meltdown that he did, or age right before our eyes and looked fragile and frail in that game, I don't know if the Bucs would have pulled it off. I think, and I feel like at times like Kamara was not even really in the game plan enough. Like it felt like they couldn't get anything going with anybody. And
I thought Kamara was slashing. He was unbelievable.
Yeah, didn't it feel like they weren't just they were doing everything?
Like they went away from him after they went to the trick play to Winston and he threw that long touchdown. It felt like they went away from their game plan and just tried to have Brees throw it. But that was the only game that was back and forth all weekend. Just to touch on your analysis of the weekend, the Bills and Ravens was boring. Cleveland just flat out choked. They had every reason to beat the Chiefs. They choked. They should be booed out of the league and relegated back to wherever they kicked them out the first time.
Browns.
But didn't we say that if a team would like screw it up, it would be like Cleveland? Like they screwed it up.
They had the ball twice, down 5 to win that game, and they let Chad freaking Henne.
Do you think they were sleeping on that last play though? That 4th and 1 play where they're like, well, they're not going to snap the ball. They're thinking they're going to jump off sides.
They were undisciplined and unprepared. You call it whatever you want. They were undisciplined and unprepared. You have to be prepared for that situation. The game is on the line. You're earning millions of dollars, and you're bringing a franchise that sucked for the last 2 decades to take down the reigning Super Bowl champions who just lost the best player in the league, and you blow it. You don't deserve shit.
Yeah. Well, if they, I agree. And if they did not convert that 4th down, that 4th and 1, I would have definitely. I would believe.
No. Go back before that. There was like 6 or 7 minutes to go. Cleveland had the ball. They were 3rd and long, and they dumped the ball off to a screen pass to Kareem Hunt on 3rd down, 3rd and 13, I think it was. Dumped it off. He gained 4 yards, ran out of bounds. They didn't even give them throw the ball down the field. If you did. Cleveland absolutely packed it in when they had a chance to drive down the field before that whole Chiefs drive. Before that whole thing transpired, they had over 6 minutes to go in the game. They had 1st down, they had 2nd down, they got a penalty. They went 3rd and long, or Mayfield got sacked rather. And all they had to do was try to get it down the field. 15 yards. They had all those receivers, Landry, all they had to do. They had a beautiful screen pass set up that was just bobbled and dropped and would have easily gained those yards. They could have called it right back and run another one. Instead, they had a dump off check down. Drove me nuts. They didn't deserve to win the game.
No, I agree. But they're a young team. I think they're still young.
No, it doesn't matter. Mayfield's a 1st-round pick. All those 1st-round picks on the O-line, high elite contracts. Landry's an elite contract. Kareem Hunt was a top. He was a 2nd-round pick, but he was an elite running back. Chubb's an elite running back. Odell didn't play. There's enough money on that team to not make that mistake.
But he was outcoached. At the end of the day, Andy Reid outcoached.
Which is why they deserve to go back to Cleveland.
Yeah. Look at Andy Reid's resume.
You shouldn't lose to Andy Reid when he gives you the ball back with Chad Henne being his quarterback. Down, it just up 6 minutes to go. You have the ball. And they're relying on Chad Henne.
Andy Reid is probably, if I'm not, maybe I'm on a stretch here, but I think he'd probably be like one of the top 5 modern coaches. He has always had great teams under his belt.
He's one of the top 5 most best game planners.
regular season coaches, but
he can game
playoffs,
plan. He's a good offensive mind. He's situational football in the fourth quarter. How many times did he blow that with the Eagles?
Yeah, but he got over that hump. That's what I mean. Like
he got over the hump because
grown.
Patrick Mahomes took him over the hump.
Maybe I'm giving him too much credit.
That's true. No, but
he made Henny look good. Come on.
I'm saying
Henny did not look that great.
I think
Henny did not look good.
Look good.
Henny had that run that was 13 yards. He was just shy of the first down. Then they went for it. I was like, I can't believe they actually went for it.
Yep.
And luckily they got it, because if they didn't get it, right, and Cleveland came marching back and scored a touchdown to win that game, everybody would be calling for Andy Reid's head. It would be another one of those 4th and 2 type situations with the Patriots. Remember when they did that against the Colts? It'd be the same exact thing. They'd be like, how can you go for it 4th and 1 on their own? I think it was like the 48-yard line. It was their end of the field, but it was right around the 50-yard line. That's a short field for Cleveland to just march down the field with 2 minutes left in the game or whatever it was. That was gutsy, but he got it.
He's grown, because he's grown in size for sure. But Andy Reid, if anybody's going to play super conservative and blow it at the end, it's Andy Reid. But I think he's like, what the hell? Like I already won it last year. Let's go aggressive. What do I got to lose? I like it. I like the aggressive Andy Reid. I love it.
Yeah.
And he did it without Mahomes. That's even ballsier. You didn't have Mahomes on the field, and you're like, I'll still go for it. And he had no faith in Baker Mayfield. He was not even worried about Baker Mayfield.
I would have liked the parity. If the Chiefs were out this year, it would have guaranteed somebody else knew was going to win, and I would have liked that. Now that the Chiefs are still in, there's probably nobody that can stop them, and they're going to repeat.
Yeah, well, what if Mahomes concussed against the Bills?
It's the NFL. They're going to find a way to let him play.
I know. That's what I was thinking. I was thinking they're going to find a way to get him in there. They'll pull some strings.
They reported today that he already made major milestone progress.
Well, think about if he gets hit once. He could ring his bell once and be taken out of that game, because that's how concussions work. I mean, just one hit could throw him back in.
Depends when
Andy Reid is a gutsy coach. Maybe
the doctor could be in the bathroom and not see it and come out and be like, "Oh, sorry, I'll get you on the next hit."
No.
So anyway, so the Bucs and the Saints was the only awesome game. It was the only one that was contested from both teams throughout. And I think that without Brady, that defense folds and packs it in halfway through the game after the Winston touchdown. Because Brady is their quarterback, I think he kind of fed off his energy that we're not out of this because you're not out of it. You're keeping us in it. And granted, those turnovers help, but I think what led to the continued because that defense is good talent-wise. They're all over the place.
Number 1 run defense.
Yeah, they're a good defense. They have a lot of talent, and they played to their potential because they were pushed to do it. Now, again, Brady doesn't play defense. He doesn't coach the defense. But like that guy, what's his name? Devontae White there, that number 45 linebacker?
Devin White.
Devin White. He was all over the place making plays, and he said it was because Brady kind of taught him how to step up in those moments and in means of perspective, how to lead in the moment, how to, he said a couple of things that attributed Brady's presence to the team stepping up in the right direction. And I think that team packs it in and lives up to their Tampa Bay, Cleveland reputation. But with Brady there, they turned it on.
I think both teams were pretty fired up, and the biggest reason for each team is to try to win it for either Drew Brees or for Tom Brady. I felt like they were both teams were just, every time they made a big play, they went like nuts on the field. I thought Tampa was a little bit, it almost seemed like they were confused a little bit in the first half, especially after the Winston touchdown. I think the announcers were saying, like, on the sideline, Gronk kind of looked, he was standing there, he looked like all confused, although he always looked confused.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's Gronk,
But
when you watch that game, I was watching the quarterback play. It wasn't pretty. You could tell they were two 40-year-old quarterbacks throwing the ball. They were missing targets.
I don't know about that.
I don't agree with that.
Yeah, they didn't know.
I thought Breeze looked a little bad because he's thrown.
Those picks were uncharacteristic, but I didn't see Breeze like missing terribly on like short throws. Not like he didn't.
No, I'm not talking short. I thought when they had like opportunities, I got to go look through some of the plays, but I felt like Brady missed some easy opportunities that they had open. Like the Gronk ones, there was just missing a little bit of touch there because there was two opportunities Gronk had them at his fingertips. And in
Sure.
the past,
Yeah, but I thought it looked like the receiver lost a step more so than Brady didn't hit the mark. It looked like Brady hit the mark, but that Gronk was a step behind.
And maybe there are a couple of throws like that, Azar. But what about the one where he threw to Godwin? And that should have been an easy touchdown. He should have pulled the ball in, and he landed on the ground. The ball went loose. And that was a great throw. That should have been a touchdown right there, and they brought it back. So
it wasn't the whole game, but there were parts I was watching. I'm like, oh, these guys, you can tell they're just not as sharp compared to when you're watching someone like when you're watching Rodgers play or the younger guys.
Oh, here we go.
You could see, even like when you watch
Jarvis
Mahomes,
get excited here.
Mahomes touch. When you watch Mahomes, he's an excite. Like there's some energy about him. Like when you watch Brady and Breeze, they're very methodical but it just didn't seem like they had that same touch from years ago. And it's not a fault. I'm not like criticizing them.
Yeah, no,
it's just
I see what you're saying.
They're definitely old. They're definitely, you can tell they're 40-year-old quarterbacks.
I mean, I'm sure that has a little bit to do with it, but I think it's more athleticism. You thought Mahomes and Rodgers, they're two very athletic quarterbacks. I've never thought of Brady or Breeze to be very athletic quarterbacks. They're slow and they can move a little bit in the pocket, but they're not running. They're not really moving on the run.
And I think that's just what we're accustomed to. There's so many fast quarterbacks now that, like, when you look at Allen, when you look at Herbert, and we'll get into this later, but like those guys look like Brady and Manning. They're tall, they're white, lanky. But then all of a sudden they're zipping around the field, and you're like, what the? So then when you see Brady and his, lumbering loaf of running, you're just like, what the hell is this guy? So all of a sudden the speed of the game and that position has increased. So it makes Brady and Breeze and those guys look more old and more slow.
And that's my point. It's not that I'm knocking them. It's just you could feel you're definitely watching older quarterbacks compared to what we're seeing with the new crop of players that come out. It's just the pace seems slow. It's just something about it.
Well, those two guys are a dying breed. I don't think you get to see too many quarterbacks come out of college anymore.
Which
like
is
that.
fine. But I mean,
we saw that tide turn a little bit, years ago. But I think nowadays, especially with all the new young quarterbacks, how many of them are pocket passers that just don't run? I mean, there's not hardly any. Any. You always end up getting a bunch. So, Breeze and Brady, you're not going to see too many of those type of quarterbacks anymore.
Yeah. And again, not knocking them. I just like when you're watching that game, like I said, it felt slower. Like something about it was definitely not the same as when you were watching the other games. The energy, whatever it is.
I thought the energy was there. Yes, they're both slow. I will give you that. But I will not take you for face value.
I thought if you're talking about the defense,
was by far the best game of the weekend.
Yeah, the defense. No. I mean, the defenses were aggressive. They were playing hard, and I think you're still underestimated. If that idiot Cook didn't fumble where he fumbled in that point of the game,
boy. You love him.
That was a bad fumble on his part. It just seemed like the New Orleans defense. You can see it getting gassed. They were just kept getting back on the field because of stupid turnovers. And I think if New Orleans, if there was better ball control or better ball discipline, I think that New Orleans defense would have been potent enough to keep Tampa at bay and squeezed out a win. Squeezed it out. I don't think it would have been close, but those turnovers were killer.
Drive for drive, New Orleans. You're right. New Orleans was beating Tampa Bay. Like when they started off of a kickoff and tried to drive, New Orleans had Tampa Bay's number. But when New Orleans turned it over, Tampa Bay took quick and concise control.
And that's Brady's specialty.
And it was three times.
Yeah. And Brady always capitalizes on mistakes. Like he is the master at it. And that's the great thing about Brady.
To your point earlier, Azar, they did drive down the field and kick the field goal. The Bucs did.
Yep.
But that was it. So they had 3 points not off turnovers, and then they had 14 or 21, something.
Yeah, they scored three times.
It was 2 or 3 touchdowns off turnover. Yeah, I think
that changed the game. That changed the game.
Totally.
And if you look at their past 2 matchups, it's just that it was the turnovers that changed the whole game. And you didn't see that in the first 2 games, and they dominated them. So I was completely wrong, and it burns me because I hate when Big Meat's right, because he can take pride and, look at the Bucs, I called it. And I hate it. It's not that. It's just like,
come on.
And I was telling you this earlier.
I was waiting because throughout that game, I said, I think the Bucs are going to lose this. I think the Saints are going to pull. I said, I wonder what it is. I was trying to think of things in my head to try to counter what you were going to say. Don't throw it all on me.
No, you earned it. You earned the right. You earned the right. It's just like when I was just talking to Big Meat before the podcast. God help me if if Jared Goff pulled out the stupid win and beat
Oh,
the Green Bay, our three would have been fluffed like a giant peacock,
oh,
bragging
man.
about "I told you,
course.
I told,"
Oh.
and I would have. And it was so I wasn't actually rooting for Rodgers. I was rooting against our three to have that satisfaction.
I was too.
That
Actually.
And
I
you,
just
you
couldn't
know
handle
he
it.
was, he only picked the Rams just to be able to get to like jam it down my throat, like, because he knew that if Rodgers blew it in the divisional round against a team that you guys shat on, you didn't even give it more than a minute on the podcast. You talked
we were
more
right,
about
though.
whether
It wasn't a
Anthony
great
Lynn was
game.
the coach of the
Yeah,
Chargers
yeah,
for
yeah,
4
you're right.
years,
Yeah.
more than
Well,
you talked about the Rams Chargers.
I think
the
it's
Rams
because
game,
we thought we
Packers.
were going to go through each game pretty quickly, and then we went through the first game. We're like, whatever. And then we started talking a lot about the next game, and we spent a lot. You're right. Now looking back now, I'm like, gee, we didn't really spend a lot of time on that first
But it's
game.
Goff. You just knew Goff.
Yeah.
And I know you didn't lose the game for him.
Although,
But you knew if Rodgers got up on him, Goff is not capable. We saw it. He can't come back and win games. Their offense, as potent as it is, he can't do it.
Azar, you mentioned something on the text thread, and I'm surprised you didn't bring it up during the podcast about your boy, Robert Woods, not being a difference maker in that game. I'm surprised you didn't mention it. Now, when you said that text, I said, oh, wow, that was a golden opportunity for Azar to
I can't
bring
believe
it up
he's
during
a
the
team
podcast.
captain.
Robert, see, you guys again. You
He's a
discredit
leader.
Robert Woods, but he is a good player on that team.
Do you know what he's not? A Super Bowl champion.
He's not.
Do you know what he never will be? A Super Bowl champion.
Because he's got Goff as his quarterback. McVay is committed to a guy who is got that Matt Stafford quality. I'll say it again. He's got the Matt Ryan and Matt Stafford. He might have talent. He might have a strong arm, but he just can't win big games. He just can't.
By the way, we did overlook something that Jarvis said earlier. He said that the Chiefs, now that if Mahomes now is comes back and plays, and they're going to be unstoppable, they're going to end up repeating again. What if it's the Packers in the Super Bowl? Are you still going to feel that way, Jarvis? That was very surprising. That was a little. You mentioned it earlier. I said, "Oh, I got to remember to bring that up." I said, "You don't have that much faith in your boy."
Well, what's the difference between putting your money where your mouth is versus being a fan? And the Chiefs were better. To your point last week, John, the Chiefs are better this year than they were last year.
I think so.
I think they're better. Yeah. I think the Packers are better, but I think the Packers have a little Steelers in them, and that they kind of had an easy schedule in like pockets of the year where like they beat up on the Buccaneers when like the Buccaneers forgot to show up that week. They laid an egg, and like the Packers defense isn't great, but they made Brady look a fool. And
you're talking about the Saints?
No, the Packers.
No.
Oh, it was the other way around. The Packers beat up the Bucs, right?
The Bucs beat up the Packers.
The Bucs beat up the Packers.
And that was Rodgers' worst game by far. I mean,
right. That's
38
right.
to 10.
So you're right. I was thinking of the Saints outcome, but this one. But
look at the game with the Saints and Bucs. The Saints won both the games in the regular season, won 38-3.
So I think.
So who knows?
So Rodgers has been unbelievable this year, and I'm going to bring him up more later on. But I'm rooting for Rodgers the most because I want Rodgers to be in that category of multiple Super Bowl championships, because that's the biggest knock against him being considered one of the all-time. Because I think he's more fun to watch than, the fact that Eli Manning has 2 and he doesn't is all I need to say.
Eli Manning is all luck. That guy.
However, if Brady were to win, not only would Brady then tie Manning for being the only other quarterback to win a Super Bowl with 2 teams, which I hate Manning having a record that Brady hasn't challenged. So Brady would be the only person to win a Super Bowl for the AFC and the NFC. So he would have one little up on Peyton. So I like that. I don't want the Chiefs to win. The Chiefs are the least interesting team. They won last year. Mahomes throws no look passes. Get off the playground. You know what I mean? I'm done with you. I'm rooting for the NFC, and the Chiefs are the best team in the league. So
AFC all the way, baby. So here's my bitterness towards Brady, and it's I was rooting for him exactly for everything you were saying, Jarvis, until this past victory. And what rubbed me the wrong way is him and Gronk with their subtle little digs at Belichick about how much fun they're having at practice and all that crap. And it's not because I care about Belichick's feelings about it, What frustrates me is, are you really telling me you were pissing and moaning the last couple of years in New England and giving us not 100% because you weren't having as much fun in practice? Like that last year with him where he wasn't showing up to off-season camp and all that shit because he said he wanted to be with his kids was all because he just wasn't having the fun. Belichick was being too tough on him.
But that happened for multiple years. He also didn't show up the year they beat the Rams in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. I just feel like he's turning into this diva. Like he
Totally.
hangs around. He's turned into
Brady
a
is a
diva like
wicked
Antonio
diva.
Brown.
Yes.
Like
Well,
he's in that class.
He doesn't beat Giselle.
We
Or
don't
his
know.
kids.
We don't know. We don't know when he's having his.
Azar's been a Brady hater for.
Yeah, I don't enjoy Brady.
Several years now.
No, I supported him all season. I was even saying he would be a top 5 quarterback. And
Are you
I think
a season ticket holder?
I am a season ticket holder. I miss him, and I'm a little bitter.
Tampa Bay?
I don't think you are.
Oh, Tampa. No one's that crazy. You won't get Disney Plus, but you get freaking season tickets to another state team.
There you go.
Yeah,
that's true. That is true.
All right, so screw the McCullen. Yeah, how about you
he's
sell
making
one
money
of
off
games?
of the Tampa Bay tickets?
Hell yeah. They started letting people in this season.
You know what? I completely forgot about it. You don't have Disney Plus, and you have season tickets for another team.
Yeah,
I completely forgot about that.
Hey, wait a second. I'm in line to get the. I'm scheduled to get the COVID vaccine the first week of February. If the Buccaneers win next week, Super Bowl's February 7th. Guess who's vaccinated and gets tickets?
Oh, it's a shame. Are you gonna bring your son with you and your wife to the game?
They don't want to go.
Who's gonna go with you? None of us can get vaccinated.
That's your problem. I'm going to the Super Bowl.
if you end up going,
John, with our airline credit, that's the beauty of it. He's gonna be like, right. I had to use your credit, guys.
So if you end up going there, does that mean you're not getting Disney Plus?
Hey, you never know. I may be in the mood to order everything while I'm down there.
All right. Well, let's start consolidating this part of the segment. So let's wrap it up. So there's 2 things I want before we wrap it up. One, predictions. So we're going into the divisional game. I mean, the championship rounds. Big Meat. Here's your chance. Are you reassessing or are you sticking with Tampa beating Green Bay?
Sticking with it.
All right. Jarvis, let's hear your prediction. Who you got?
I'm going to be happy no matter what. I'm either going to be a winning season ticket holder or
Glenn
Aaron
Ordway.
Rodgers.
Just pick one.
Or Aaron. Aaron Rodgers. I don't have. What do you mean get off the fence? I'm genuinely a fan of the sport, and I love the competition. And
a political answer.
How could you root against Brady or Rodgers? I think the fact that we get to see them both on the same field in the playoffs is just be cherished.
Gag me.
Gag me. Pick one.
All right. I'm
pick one.
We'll come back to it.
I'm going with the Green Bay, and the only reason is I thought that New Orleans game was so physical, and with Tampa, those guys, they put everything out on the field that week. I think that physical game, they're going to carry it over to Green Bay, and I don't think Green Bay had that kind of a hard push, and I think Green Bay is going to have. I think they're going to have fresher legs because I think Tampa pulled it all out on the field last week. I think that was their big win. So AFC Big Meat, Bills or Chiefs. That's with Mahomes playing. If Mahomes doesn't play, it's a wild.
You don't have
card.
faith in Chad Henne?
I
thought you Andy Reid is this
zero.
great coach. Andy Reid is this wizard.
I would love it
all time
in history.
No, because I'm rooting for the Bills, and but go ahead, Meat. Just go.
If Mahomes is playing, then Chiefs all the way. I just don't like. I agree with what Jarvis said earlier. They look unstoppable. They look great. Mahomes is just he's so fun to watch, and I like the Bills too. They're fun to watch too. I love Josh Allen. I think Stephon Diggs is great. I think their defense is solid. It's going to be a good game. I just don't see them having enough of the firepower that the Chiefs have. I just think with Kelsey and Hill and all those weapons, it's tough to outscore them. I just think the Chiefs are going to come back to the Super Bowl again. But
the Bills have laid eggs multiple times this season. Like they've just not showed up, and they're at risk for doing it again. Whereas the Chiefs, they lost once to the Raiders, but they showed up to every game. Yeah. I don't think they've had one bad game. The Chiefs all season. Or like in the Raiders game, came down to the end. Like that was a close game. So, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be high scoring, but every game they were played is competitive. Whereas the Bills can't say that. They've had a couple of stinkers.
So I want the Bills to win.
I just want to see Buffalo burn. If they win, they will burn that city down, and the footage that will go viral is worth it.
I think it'd be fun. I have some friends that are Bills fans. I think it'd be fun to watch them. I think it's due. I said that in the podcast last week. I'm looking forward to the Bills, but I agree with you guys. I just feel if the Chiefs get up on them, I just don't. I think Allen is prone to doing too much mistake. And I think that's the killer. Allen will try to refuse to throw it out. He's going to try to make a big play out of something that should have been just thrown out, and it's going to cost a turnover and maybe cost them the game or kill the momentum for the game. So that's my fear is unless the Bills find a way to get up and early on them. But again, the Chiefs have the firepower to catch up. I just find it hard to imagine the Chiefs blowing it with that much talent on their team compared to the Bills. So I'm with you guys. I think we're all in agreement. So I guess it's fair to say, I think we'll probably all agree, the Rodgers and Brady game is probably going to be the best game of the weekend. I think that's going to be the game.
That's the first game. That's going
to be that's going to be the game.
It's going to be snowing. I think Green Bay's supposed to get snow. I mean, it's everything is going to tell you Tampa's going to lose as a team, right? So am I picking Rodgers? Am I picking Brady? I don't know if the team Tampa can prepare to play in the snow, whereas Green Bay is going to be prepared for the conditions. Obviously, Brady, whatever, from New England, but none of his receivers are conditioned to, work on their footing in the snow or slippery conditions. They're just used to running around on turf or the sunshiny grass. So I don't know.
Yeah. And Green Bay does allow them to have fans in the stadium. So it's not like there's going to be some weird advantage or it's going to be quiet.
Right.
Like there will be fans screaming. The energy for Green Bay will be there. I think the combo between Rodgers and Devontae Adams is going to be tough. I don't know if the secondary for Tampa can shut down Devontae Adams. I just think
I mentioned this last week. Devontae Adams was just on another level this year. And I mean, who else is Rodgers really throwing to, right? I mean, he's got Tanya in the tight end. He's got Lazard. He's got Scantling. He's got a couple of guys here and there, but they're not superstars, right? Adams is so good that I just can't imagine why teams don't go in and say,
because you don't give enough credit to the running game. So the Packers' success is actually built around their running game.
Okay, so I'm glad you said that. So Tampa Bay having the number one run defense. If Bruce Arians was smart, he would go into this game and say, okay, I got my run defense. I'm just going to let them do what they do. I'm just going to double up on Adams, and I'm going to try to have Rodgers try to beat us, throwing to the rest of his guys.
And Rodgers is prone to staying away from lockdown defenders.
Sure.
If you went back and watched the battles he had with the Seahawks when they were the Legion of Boom, he would go an entire game without targeting Richard Sherman.
Yeah.
Was deathly afraid of Sherman.
But
who's he afraid of on the Bucs? There's no one.
Doesn't matter. Sherman would play one-on-one coverage, and Cam Chancellor would be running around, and Earl Campbell would be running around hitting people in the box. It wouldn't. Even, it was just Sherman on the outside. So if you put double coverage there, and maybe like you said, John, I don't know if it was this week or last week, but some sort of bracketed triple coverage. So you got two deep safeties and a press corner on Adams. So try to take away the short stuff, and then if he breaks, you get two safeties hauling his ass down the field. Rodgers probably going to stay away from that. Rodgers doesn't want to take.
Oh, then they'll get chewed up by
Lazard
on Tanya. There's no.
There you go. So on one hand,
we're just talking about how to stop Adams. That was literally what the question was.
No, I know, but I just think that Rodgers would just feast.
Well, to your Adams. Point, Azar, is that on one hand that I'm thinking is Rodgers was so good this year and he's so great that he'll find a way to hit his other receivers
like he did last week. Great.
He's going to be a tough stop. But for Tampa to have any chance of winning, they have to follow that system and just hope for the best and hope the other guys step up and stop those guys.
And they have to hope that the weather negates if the weather negates some speed and keeps everybody closer because it's either slippery footing or whatever. Yeah. Then some of those guys are going to be neutralized too.
And for years, it'll be interesting to see Ndamukong Suh and Rodgers because they have a thing. For years now, they have a history together where they just literally they do not like each other. So every time they play against each other, they're jawing at each other, they're yapping. Yeah. So
it's
going to be an interesting matchup.
Was Suh's name even called in the broadcast last? I don't remember his name really being said that much.
He was.
Oh yeah.
Wasn't in the broadcast? No, I know he played, but I feel like he wasn't.
They
remember they
highlighted him. It
mentioned
was
him.
like the third quarter or something. They did this big close up, and he was just so much bigger than everybody else.
No, did he make a big play? I don't remember him making a big play.
I don't know if it was a big play. It was a third down. He grabbed Kamara right in the hole and just stuffed him, and they ended up punting. But
anyways,
it'll be a great game. I know I got to stick with my Bucs. I'm
Bucs.
I'm
the
betting.
season ticket holder.
I'm betting on. Well, yeah, no, we were supposed to go to the game. God damn it, that was like that still.
I didn't play in COVID. You guys did.
That's right. So I'm thinking more with my heart than my head. I look at the Green Bay Packers, and I've said it. They've been unbelievable all year long. Rodgers is great. He's going to be MVP. Blah blah blah. Right, all that. But there's just something about the Bucs. I'm going with that. I'm just sticking to it. Plus, I don't want to have to go with the number one seed versus the number one seed. I don't want to do that. I don't want to say Chiefs, Packers. I want to go a little bit more bold. I'm going to go with the Bucs. And if I lose and they don't win, then fine. Then I go down, sticking to my gut. But if they win,
the gloating, the grin.
You will be hearing like nothing you've ever heard before.
All right.
On next week's podcast.
So just to wrap up, everybody, before we move on, Meat's calling the Super Bowl. It will be the Bucs and the Chiefs. Yep. Jarvis and I are saying Packers. Right? Are we saying Packers too, Jarvis?
I know he hasn't really been
You'll have to go back and listen. You'll have to go back and listen.
I'm sorry. He
said Packers.
He just wants to be right either way. So
our three, I cannot confirm nor deny. Our three will. He is dying to get me to have conviction, and I won't do it.
Right, you know what's going to happen? He's going to say on the text thread, he's going to say, well, look back, listening back on the podcast at minutes, 7 through 9. That's what he really was talking up the Packers. But like minutes 12 to 14, he was really talking about the Bucs. So,
oh my God, that's so funny. All right,
he's
so
right
I'm saying Packers Chiefs is the Super Bowl.
I'm having a mic.
All right. So next week before the Super Bowl, we'll have a chance to talk about who we're going to win the Super Bowl. But we'll save that. So for the sake of time, we're going to move on to the next quick topic before we get into our fantasy talk. Big Meat and I are excited for those who have Disney Plus and are willing to spend the money for their family. WandaVision came out last Friday, and they dropped 2 episodes. Big Meat. You and I were both looking forward to this. This was kind of the whole, Jesus, when is Disney Plus going to release content that we can enjoy? The Mandalorian was a great start to the Disney Plus, but it took forever to come out. But now they're starting to roll out with some new series. So WandaVision is the first Marvel series that they're dropping. And I don't think the Winter Soldier one is coming out till later. I think closer to the summer, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I think it's March.
No, I don't think it's March.
I think it's March 19th was the launch date for Winter Soldier. Yeah, so I was going to say, before we really get into the WandaVision, we were talking a little bit earlier about Disney Plus. If you don't have Disney Plus, now might be the time to get it, because we talked about this a year and a half ago, Azar. You said there wasn't enough content. We went through this whole thing. Well, now's the time to get Disney Plus, because now the content is here, right? You had The Mandalorian, you have WandaVision. Now with the Marvel television shows that are coming out, you got WandaVision that's going to go up until maybe early March, I think. And then it's going to roll right into Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And then when that's done, it's going to roll into the Loki series. So Marvel's going to have basically a show pretty much all throughout the year. Give or take maybe a week or 2 off here and there, but pretty much all year long. So they'll never be short of a Marvel television show. And especially if
the winter will have the Mandalorian series or the Boba Fett series will be rolling in.
Yeah. And they have a ton of streaming shows that Marvel has lined up, and they have a ton of Star Wars shows streaming that are also lined up too. So it's going to go from now until the end of time, really. There's always going to be some programming there.
So if you want to get your money's worth, it's time. It's time.
Now's the time to do it. Yes,
it's time now to get your wallet out, bust up the credit card, and join society, civilized society, and start streaming Disney Plus, and stop having your poor kid watch commercials when he can stream uninterrupted Disney content. That's the key of a good family man, right
You could have him watch the animated Star Wars, Clone Wars, and Rebels.
If I understood half of anything that you just said, I might be hooked. You talked about a falcon. And it wasn't the Millennium one that I know. You were Loki, like the Viking guy.
Loki.
Like, where are we?
Yeah.
What
From
WonkaVision? I saw Willy Wonka in the '80s, and I saw all the WonkaVision that I needed. What the hell are you guys talking about with freaking WonkaVision? What the hell is this? That's a Marvel thing? Like, listen, Jessica Jones was a good series on Netflix. That's as far into like the loser superhero realm that I'm willing to go. Like, what are we reaching for? Give me some more of the Punisher. Give me some more Daredevil. Like, I know those guys. Those guys were badass. We're going to like Willy Wonka's Wanda Sykes. What is what are we doing with this?
By the way, Daredevil just wrapped up filming for Spider-Man 3. Daredevil's they're gonna do that crossover
like,
from
I
Netflix.
Use some more Spider-Man in my life. There's not enough Spider-Man.
That Daredevil character?
Daredevil character, yeah, he was filming scenes in Spider-Man
that's awesome.
3.
Yeah,
and I heard Jessica Jones is going to be in the She-Hulk series that comes out next year. Yeah, so there's all these news that are coming.
And you know what? I could get around the Wonder Woman character was good until this new thing came out that was hot trash. I want no part of that. With the 1984 thing, like, come on, what are we doing with terrible Star Wars, terrible Marvel movies? Like, let's get to the basics. Go back to what works. WandaVision has no. You know what? Like, I feel like I'm talking about. Do you remember when the boys came out
Jarvis.
and you sounded like you were preaching like a Boy Scouts clinic? Like, oh, everybody, let's come together for the boys. You know, like, how terrible does that sound? But it actually was a fantastic series. So I walked back my criticism of the title of The Boys. I can't do it on this. WandaVision sounds like.
Wait a minute.
First of all, Jarvis, do you know where the name comes from? Because
no.
So
he has no idea.
So did you watch? If you had Disney Plus, you might be able to go back and watch the Avengers.
I went back and watched Willy Wonka.
Infinity War.
I saw WonkaVision. I know what you're talking about. Which one? There was like an infinity of them.
The fact that you don't know who Loki is.
He's a key character, like all the movies. Like
he was the main villain in most of the Avengers.
Yes, I know who Loki is.
Okay.
So how are you shocked about the title?
Because he's also in Vikings.
And you do realize that.
And it emphasized my making fun of you for Peanut Butter Falcon or whatever you just said.
Oh, God. And now two main characters. One was like a main villain in one of the movies.
Yeah, Loki, I get that.
In Captain America. So WandaVision is a combination of two names. Wanda.
Stupid
who's
name.
The magician, and then Vision, the guy that was like a main character that was created.
Stupid name.
So Wanda is the name of Scarlet Witch. So that's her name, Wanda Maximoff. So it's Wanda and Vision, WandaVision together.
The Scarlet. We sound like
the fact you said Wanda Sykes just disturbed me.
This is like you guys trying to describe the Game of Thrones. You had like the White Stalkers and like the Garflemongers flying in over here. Like, what are we doing? What happened to Spider-Man? Spider-Man.
Dial Antifa Boy. I'm going to ask him to jump on because Antifa Boy at least has watched Game of Thrones. At least understands this content. You haven't even watched Game of Thrones, and you're crapping on Roper for Indiana Jones.
That's not true. I did watch the one Game of Thrones episode that Aaron Rodgers was cameoing.
It was towards the very end of the series.
I did see that.
You had no idea what the hell was going on, but you watched it.
It was a cool dragon burning the village scene, and then some like poor little kid's toy got roasted, and I don't know. It was all right.
So yes. Whatever. So our dork meter does go up when we talk. We get excited about this. But you do break our heart that you have never watched The Mandalorian. You've never watched Game of Thrones.
But I'm into The Mandalorian. You know what? Like, I need The Mandalorian in my life because I'm so upset about the last Star Wars movies that
The Mandalorian, I'm telling you.
I needed to step away from Star Wars as a franchise.
It has redeemed itself.
Regroup. I needed to relight the pilot of the flame of my heart for Star Wars because they just doused it with a gallon of water.
You just have to watch Mandalorian because it will win you back.
Okay.
If you're a Star Wars fan, it will win you back.
Can you stop entertaining him? We're supposed to be talking about WandaVision. He's pulled you into The Mandalorian for a guy who doesn't even have Disney Plus. What are you doing? Let's just, first of all, people.
He will get Disney Plus tonight. He will get it.
So for most of us that did watch WandaVision, because we are in polite society now, we do watch and have Disney Plus. It was a. See, the funny thing is, he's knocking the title of the name, but it was some of the oddest TV I've ever watched. Like, it was. I don't know
It
if
was
it's
very different.
yeah, it
Very
was
different.
creative writing because we always praise that creative, but there's no villain. Like, there's no villain in the first episode, so you don't even know what you're watching. Like, and what they're doing to suck you in is a little perplexing. Like, you think they would give you a little teaser or something, other than these little clues, like nibbles of that there is a deeper villain in the background. They just haven't introduced it yet, but it was kind of a head scratcher. You know, usually the first couple episodes will hook you into a series, and in this one, didn't really give you a lot. You have to really know the characters before you even open it and start the show. And I thought that was interesting. Like, if you never heard of these two characters, like our man Jarvis here, who has no clue what's going on,
It
he
helps
probably
my
would hate
argument
this.
for
He
your
would have been
shows is
he would
stupid.
have shut it off within minutes because he's like, I don't know what's going on. So it is a little confusing that they didn't provide any context or anything. It just goes into this I Love Lucy type of commercial-ish.
Wait, in my defense, I watched Luke Cage and Iron Fist, and I had no idea who they were, and I enjoyed those series.
Okay, and that's my point, is that even if you didn't know those characters, in the first couple episodes, they introduced you to them, and you quickly kind of had an understanding what was going on. In these two episodes, I don't think if you never knew or heard of these characters, you would understand what the hell's going on, other than, like, is this like a sitcom spoof or something? Because it was a little bizarre. I don't know about your thoughts on it, Meat. It was a little risky.
Yeah. It was risky. I think they're just banking on the fact that it's the first streaming Marvel show. So they knew they were going to get some people sucked in. But I'm with you. When I first watched it, I said, okay, I get it. I get what's kind of going on. And by the way, we might even reveal a couple of spoilers here. So if you haven't seen it, I guess maybe Jarvis is one of them. He's the one guy that he's like, I guess I don't know how much I can actually talk about it because Jarvis is actually here.
Came down from the seventh wall of Goron and attacked the Stalkwalkers.
He sounds like, you know what he sounds like? Dale Arnold. When Keith would talk about his shows, and Dale Arnold would poo-poo it because he just didn't want to hear it because he's like,
the thing is, like, if Jarvis came to us and said, "Look, I've never watched any Star Wars movies. I don't like any. Like, I don't like sci-fi." I would get it completely. But the fact that he's actually watched those movies, he enjoys them. So he can't talk about, gargoyles and whatever the hell is good creatures are coming out. All right, just, you know what? I'm just moving past that. I'm not gonna go through any real spoilers here, but I'm just gonna give you in a nutshell because we don't want to touch too much on it. It's only 2 episodes of WandaVision. Jarvis, you've yet to see it, so you can't really contribute all that much to it. But I agree, Azar, with what you said. When I was watching it, I said, all right, I get the premise. I kind of understand what's going on here. Let's get into it. Let's get to it. And so when the first episode was over, I said, okay, now the second episode it's going to pick up. And then it didn't. And it was just another episode just like that. I do think at some point in the season, and by looking at the trailer, something big happens. I mean, so you have to just be patient and watch through it. As I was watching it live, I said, as I was watching it, I said, this definitely is going to build up to something. But I was getting a little impatient. Now looking back at it, and after everything that I've read, I know something big is going to end up happening.
Well, it's dazzling insight. I was watching a series. The first episodes kind of led to nothing, but I know something's going to happen.
It is. It's such a bizarre show, Jarvis. It's hard to explain without giving anything away. But if you watch a TV
series, a couple episodes are going to be boring. Something exciting happens, and then the season's going to end. You got
to
watch.
If you watch The Witcher, The Witcher was the same thing.
No, The Witcher. The Witcher was boring, and then it's like, all right, something big's going to happen, and then nothing happened all season. Nothing happened.
That is not true. It did get better at the end. It just took 8 or 9 episodes before it got good.
But I do got to say about this show, the guy that plays Vision, he is a great actor. Like, I watching that show, like, just his mannerisms and his facial expressions, like, he is as Vision, right? He was a robot, right? There's not really a lot of there's not a lot of acting ability to showcase there, but in the show, he gets to kind of be a little bit of an actor, and he was great. I thought he's a great actor. I know he's played in a couple other movies before, but I don't know. I was impressed by him.
They did a good job for what they were doing, like this weird, like 50s sitcom type of thing. They did a good job pulling it off.
Yeah.
I wish they just gave it something else. Like you were watching and you went to the second episode because you wanted to see like, all right, like, is this going to mean anything? And then it didn't, and it ended. You were like, crap. Like,
Right.
so now you're going to watch a third. If the third episode is the same thing, I'm probably not going to. I'll probably be checking out. Like, there's other things to watch.
You got to stick. You got to.
If the third episode is exactly the same way, I don't know. Like,
well, the way the end of the second episode ended, it's going to be. I know it's going to be a little bit different. It's just going to be. It'll be a little different, I think, and it's just going to get better and better from here. That's what I think, and it is based on.
God, he's hoping.
It is based on the comic book series that they had. So it's not like they're just making this stuff up out of thin air. It is based off of what they actually put in the comics, which I didn't read the comics, so I don't know what the heck's going on, but I know it's based off of that. I did actually find an article online that pretty much explains it in a nutshell. And it's a pretty well-known site that covers a lot of movies and shows. It's screenrant.com. Azar, I don't know, or Jarvis, I don't know if you guys have heard of it. You've been on it? Yeah. So screenrant.com. And they have the title why the world changes to color at the end of episode 2. So it gives you a pretty good description as to what might be happening. It's not like it's giving away spoilers because it's not like it knows how it's going to end. But I think it's the best description of what might be happening in the show, and it's not confusing. It's like you read it. It's a short paragraph. It's a short article. But check it out. If you're kind of confused as to what the hell's going on after the first 2 episodes of WandaVision, go check out that article on screenrant.com. And I'll put the link up on our YouTube channel once this podcast gets posted. But I thought it was the best thing that I've read leading up to what the reviews are on the show. So.
Well, I hope you're right, Meat, because Disney needs it. They you can't just rely on the Mandalorian to carry it. If this thing stays weird, I don't know. It's just not a good look for Disney. Like, I'd be disappointed. It'd be like, come on, like all this waiting, and the show's like a dog. But hey, you know what? I like the actors. Like you were saying, they did a good job. I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt, but now they only drop because it's Disney Plus 1 episode at a time. If you're going to make me sit there, I might as well just stop watching it, and then I'll just binge watch it when the series is over, if it's going to be like this consistently. Because I don't know if I want to keep coming back and dedicating a Friday night to just sit here and waiting for this thing to download. I mean, it comes down when it drops, want to watch it Friday night if it's just going to be like this weird.
Yeah, but isn't it one of those shows, though, like the small, short scenes that kind of reveal a couple things, like those Easter eggs? Doesn't that interest you at all to kind of keep you guessing as to what really is going on?
Yeah, but unfortunately, I had to go online to figure out what the Easter eggs were about. That's what was frustrating. Yeah. I'm like, I know what I don't want to have to read every time an episode ends. Like, okay, what did all that mean? Like, that's not good content. My kids looked at it and walked away. They're like, what the hell are you watching? No, thank you, and left. So it's not it's supposed to be a family show.
Yeah, it's very different. It's very different the way they.
A little disappointed, but again, it's early. Give it the benefit of the doubt, because it is Disney and Marvel. We'll see how it goes. All right, we'll wrap it up there because Meat and I will probably dive into it in a podcast when Jarvis isn't here making dirty looks and like snickering and God help us saying Wanda Sykes. Oh, God.
Whatever.
Wanda Sykes.
WonkaVision.
WonkaVision. All those other.
Sucks.
His poor kid. That's like he said, what can I dress up like? Well, I only know Wonka. How about we dress you up like a Oompa Loompa? Come on.
The fact that Elizabeth Olsen is in it, that's the only reason why you should watch it.
Did you realize that your description and review of this had even yourselves on the fence of finishing the episode?
Yeah, well,
that's the season.
But we give it we actually take the time to watch it. Like, we suffer for you to tell you guys. Like, we watched.
Oh, I'm not on the fence.
We watched Wonder Woman 84.
I'm sticking to it.
And we gave you the review just to help you guys.
Keep in mind too, and I don't know if we touched on this too with WandaVision. It's only 9 episodes, and we've already gone through the first 2, and they're literally 20 to 22 minutes each. That's how long the episodes are. They're very, very short. So you could bang those out, the whole season within a few hours.
Or you could just wait for them all to drop and just bang it out by yourself in a couple hours. All right. Well, let's move on to fantasy because that's something this is why Jarvis is here to really dive into the fantasy talk. Big Meat. Let's see if there's any closing thoughts you had on WandaVision.
No, because I'm not saying anything else, so Jarvis can make his snarky remarks. So
He's
no,
getting
let's
so
move
snarky. All right. So quickly on fantasy before we dive into the top quarterbacks, I wanted to give an update because we did a podcast about there was all these coaching vacancies, and figures a week later there was some hirings, and good thing that we have Jarvis on hand because one of the big names that were hired for Jacksonville was Urban Myers. Now I don't watch a lot of college football.
Meyer, no
I
S.
don't think, huh?
Meyer, Urban Meyer.
Oh my, I'm
No
sorry.
S.
I did write Meyer. I just read that wrong on my own notes. Good for me.
I'm here to help.
So I want to get your insight on what kind of impact you think Urban Meyer will have on Jacksonville, Jarvis. And me and we talked. The Jets hired Robert Salah. He's the 49ers defensive coordinator. Interesting hire for them. So we could talk about that. Just kind of interesting. The only real offensive coordinator out of the other two that were hired, Atlanta hired an offensive coordinator. His name was Arthur Smith, and I forget where he came from. Where did he come from? Do you remember where Arthur Smith came from, Big Meat? Oh, I thought I wrote it down.
I thought it was Atlanta, wasn't it? Oh no.
No, he got hired for Atlanta to be their head coach.
He was a Titan.
You know what?
The Titans.
I couldn't read my own handwriting. I did write that. He was the offensive coordinator for the Titans. So I do like that hire for Atlanta, that you're bringing in someone like him to that team. And then the Chargers, Brandon Staley, and he's actually the Rams defensive coordinator. So that's an interesting hire. You have that young QB and that talent. And instead of bringing an offensive mind to kind of build that offense, they went with a defensive coordinator. So I thought that was interesting. So I don't know. Did you guys see anything other than in that news that excited you when you saw these updates? Like Urban Meyer, I kind of
That's definitely
my
the sexiest name on the list, right? So I actually like the Jets coach Salah. I think he was pretty good in San Francisco. He's a bald-headed guy. He's young, kind of jacked up. I always liked him. He put together a ferocious 49ers defense a few years ago. Again, was that the draft picks because they sucked for so many years? I don't know. But I'd be interested to see if he can turn that around. Urban Meyer is definitely the sexiest name on the list, though. Is he going to be like Nick Saban to the Dolphins, or is he going to be like, Cliff Kingsbury to the Cardinals? Like, at least they're fun to watch. I mean, Saban sucked in Miami. They were terrible. And I don't know. Like, Urban Meyer was such a dominant college coach. I mean, he won at Florida. He won at Ohio State. Had some controversy, and can he really turn around the Jaguars? You know what? I'm not that high on Trevor Lawrence. There's something about him that I just like. Kind of, I went on a rant about this in some either on the text thread or something. There's just something about him that doesn't strike me as a quarterback that's going to do well in the NFL.
It's the long blonde flowing hair.
No, it has something to do with his release. When he releases the ball, I see like this limpy, I don't know. It's just something about him that is just doesn't work for me. So we'll see. I mean,
you can say that for our draft talk, like after the
draft, who else? Like Teddy Bridgewater is who I felt this. And I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be. He's got the same release as Bridgewater, and when he tries to throw a deep ball, it has this. Anyway. Jacksonville, I don't think can get their act together under Urban Meyer, because Urban Meyer could recruit an entire class of blue chip prospects and be the most dominant team. Here he can only get one or two at a time. It's going to help with some free agents, I think, but it's fucking Jacksonville. They're terrible, and they're trading away Ramsey. I mean, Fournette was not anything, but like to trade away Ramsey, they got those draft picks. What are they going to do? What did they do with them? I like some of the linebackers they have, but I just. Ugh.
But what if they? Okay, so you're not a big fan of Trevor Lawrence, but
that's it. If Urban Meyer had like a legit quarter, like if Joe Burrow was the number one pick this year and Urban Meyer was getting him, I would be higher on the Jaguars.
But there's a few good young quarterbacks that are going to be drafted. What if he trades down, gets a couple more picks?
It's not going to happen.
They have James Robinson there as a running back. Surprise. They still got DJ Chark. They still got decent weapons.
It just, I don't, can he, so I guess for Urban Meyer, I think this is going to be a reclamation project. And your question is to next season. I don't think he's going to have the biggest impact. Like Matt Rule going to Carolina, like Carolina they were a fine team. Like they won some games, but like he wasn't the dominant coach that he was in college. Cliff Kingsbury wasn't the dominant coach that he was in college. These guys coming in from college, the most successful NFL head coaches are the ones that failed in the NFL, went to college, reestablished themselves, and then came back, like Pete Carroll, right? Like those guys.
A lot of the college coaches don't necessarily transition well.
I think Urban Meyer has a good reputation with the players. To answer this question, it's the sexiest name, but I don't think it's going to make the biggest impact next year. I think the Chargers or the Falcons. See, the Falcons, I think, are going to be their own worst enemy. They're cursed now since that Super Bowl. They just will not stop losing games. And I don't know enough about Arthur Smith, although if he can make Ryan freaking Tannehill max quarterback player, I think there's something there. I think he's going to have. Do you know what that I equate that to? Atlanta is going to next year is going to be this year's or last year's Colts, where Frank Reich was the juice in Philadelphia. He leaves, Philadelphia goes into the toilet, and Indy is now on the rise. I think Arthur Smith could have that effect on Atlanta. So, but I think overall the Chargers have one of the best teams potential wise. That if they could get some stability.
So I think I like the Arthur Smith pick out of the 4 so far because it's going to be, from a fantasy perspective, I would love to see what they do for their running back situation. Because Todd Gurley's probably on the way out with his bad knees, so he's probably not going to be their guy. And I wonder if he's going to help build up Matt Ryan, but also build a running game. I wonder if Atlanta is going to be a very run-oriented offenses for next year. So it'll be an interesting thing because you saw what he did with Derrick Henry. So would he look for that same kind of bruising back in the draft or free agent, bring them in?
Maybe Mark Ingram. He just got released today.
Yeah. But
right.
I'm thinking Mark Ingram is a big guy. But let's just say he goes and finds someone.
Yeah, but you're going to replace Devontae Freeman with Todd Gurley and then Mark Ingram.
I don't think Mark Ingram would be that sexy to bring in.
You can get some fresh legs in the 5th round of the draft.
But think about the weapons he has. He's got like a Calvin Ridley. He still has Julio Jones.
Who has not taken the beating that he was taking. He does not have the mileage on him. I heard you guys say somebody said Julio Jones is finished. I don't know if it was you guys on the radio. I don't think he's finished. I think he's got a few more.
Finished being elite. Finished being considered the elite.
But
receiver.
I still think he's gonna be like he's not gonna fall to like where T.Y. Hilton has fallen. He's got like some intermediate.
That's
before
fair.
He
But
gets
I think you're not thinking him as top 5 anymore. Like, I didn't
think of him.
Yeah,
top
we
five
were
year
talking about it as compared to fantasy. That's what we were discussing with Julio Jones.
I always thought anybody who drafted Julio Jones in the first 2 rounds was a fool anyway.
Yeah. So I want to.
Hey, when he played, he was great. It's just he never freaking played. He never played for me this year.
Big meat there.
Yeah, exactly. That was nice.
For the news, I just want to touch base because I just want to give updates. So for the GMs, the Broncos brought in George Payton, who's the VP of Player Personnel for Minnesota. So he did a really good job in Minnesota of building that offense. So I think that's a good signing for the Broncos. The Lions brought in Brad Holmes. He's the Rams college scouting coach. So the Lions are the Lions. I don't have a lot of faith that franchise will ever be good. And
who was the guy you said they were going to bring in?
They brought in Brad Holmes. He's the Rams college.
Oh, what happened to Dan Campbell? Wasn't now that New Orleans?
Yeah, I heard his name.
So these are the latest signings from this morning.
Dan Campbell was the guy from Miami that was like, "Bro, we're gonna win."
So the Panthers brought in Scott Fitterer, and he's the Seahawks VP of football operations. So there's another guy that has done a good job of building teams. But the one that I wanted to ask you guys real quick from a GM perspective that I found interesting is the Nick Caserio signing. There's all kinds of chaos after he got signed for the Texans, and I just was curious, based on the track record of what you saw, how the Patriots draft. Now, I know a lot of people blame Belichick for a lot of the drafting and the scout, like their poor acquisition of receivers and the running back. Like, is there any faith that Nick Caserio can go into Texas and actually fix that franchise, I think out of the four, I would be concerned about him.
So I have to answer that question in two parts. First is the Nick Caserio part. Do I think Nick Caserio could go into another franchise and bring in like quality draft picks? Yes. Do I think he can go into the Texans franchise and do it? No. Why do I give you that answer? Because I think the Texans are becoming polarized as Patriots South. And I think the Bill O'Brien regime, he was Patriot heavy, trade kept bringing it, like they got Brandon Cooks. They just have like a bunch of Patriots down there. And I think if you want to turn the leaf from the Bill O'Brien stamp, you can't keep bringing in the Patriots. And I think the Texans are going to try to cut away from the Belichick mold because, again, it's just more evidence that the Patriot way doesn't work elsewhere. Patricia failed. Mangini failed. Romeo Crennel failed. Bill O'Brien was probably the most successful, but ultimately got his ass thrown out because he traded DeAndre Hopkins for a bag of dicks. Like, what?
Played.
What did no reaction from me? I was paused there for you. There's just nothing that says adopting the Patriot way is going to have the same level of success for your franchise. I do not think, so I think that the Nick Caserio thing to the Texans is more because they were pot committed a year ago and they had that whole thing. So I think this was a handshake deal from when Bill O'Brien was the head coach. Now that he's not there, I don't think that he's going to find it I don't think it's going to be the same setup that it would have been if it was Bill O'Brien. Yeah. But I think he can turn around a franchise and bring in quality players because it has been reported that Caserio's draft board does not match any of the Patriots draft picks because Bill comes in and he's like, no, I like that guy. Take him. And that's what I was wondering about that. So we don't really have a good sense of what Caserio could do because he gets so overridden. Overruled. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Overruled is a better word.
There are some stories that are coming out, and I wish I knew you guys were going to bring this up because I would have had them on the ready. There were some major draft whiffs that it was leaked that Caserio recommended like really, really successful players that Belichick said no to. And like, when I heard these names, and I wish I could remember them offhand for this conversation.
But we can bring it up during the draft because I think that's something you could talk about because the reason I'm bringing this stuff up is because Meat and I were focusing on it. A lot of times people go and open their magazine and all they focus on.
Nobody opens a magazine anymore. You said it last week. You are the last person that goes to Walmart and buy a magazine.
But you know what I mean. And that's not true. That is not true because that is a huge industry. So you're lying right there. You're just too cheap to buy a magazine. So
it's
you
all go free on the internet.
So you go into a public school system.
The cost of one magazine is the cost of 1 month.
By the time you turn the page, news information and it's outdated. I'm reading current real-time free stuff.
You don't like to sit on the toilet and read good stuff then apparently because I
sit on the toilet and read my phone. Don't ever touch my phone. It's got poop articles on it.
So
right, my wife would say.
All right. So anyways, the point is that I say that is a generalized thing, but if you're doing your research, I think don't overlook some of these hirings because they can make a big impact on the development of a team and where the direction of the team's going. That's kind of where I'm focusing from a fantasy perspective.
But I should say with Caserio, and I mentioned this last week too, with the Texans, they're at least 2 years away from doing anything. They are
they don't have any draft picks for 2 years.
They have no draft picks. I think I mentioned it last week. I don't think JJ Watt. I think they're going to cut JJ Watt. I think they're going to move on from him, the face of the franchise. They're going to blow up that whole thing.
So they said Watson just demanded a trade. They don't think he's going to play for the Texans ever.
Yeah, they're shopping him around right now. They're shopping.
I think the Texans are going to go backwards, so far backwards next year before they could go forward, and it's going to be a couple of years before we really see what Caserio can do there. But they're in rough shape.
So
maybe Caserio will get there and trade us Watson. It'll be a little inside job.
Well, that was the joke when he got traded is that Belichick has set this whole thing up and he's on the phone with him every day, be like, all right, how can we get him to the Patriots?
$35 million a year.
Yeah. So I brought up the GM thing because I was actually interested. Like out of the 4 signings, the VP from football operations from the Seahawks with CMC, if he can build that talent around CMC right now, there's a guy that is qualified to build and capitalize on CMC. That's kind of where I was going with that, like bringing that up.
He got lucky with Wilson, and he drafted because Wilson fell to like the 2nd or 3rd round.
Yeah, but if you think,
and he got a defense, he built that defense.
But he's not just a defensive guy. I mean, you look at that team with DK Metcalf. You look at I mean, the running back situation isn't great, but they've always had decent run game, defense, decent offensive line.
Because they take linemen, which helps your CMC case, but what are they going to do with Teddy Bridgewater? Russell Wilson.
But that's what I mean. Like, you would hope that they would be still shopping for a quarterback. I have optimism. I think out of the signings, like, who's going to have the most immediate impact? I don't think the Lions are going to turn around their franchise.
No, but I want to see who the Chargers hire for the offensive coordinator, because I think that could be a game changer, which I will elaborate on later if we ever get to the quarterback segment an hour and a half into the podcast.
All right, we're getting there now. Hey, we're giving updates. We were challenged to make sure we add relevant content that teaches people things. So
that's true.
We are bringing it a little to another level to satisfy.
And this is the extended podcast because we haven't seen you in so long.
That's right. That's right. It's like more of a warm homecoming.
Yep. Remember, we've been doing this weekly here, though. This is a new year for us for the Is Anybody Listening to Us podcast with Azar.
We might still be on by the time you guys go to log back in next week.
No, we're going to wrap it up now. We're going into the final segment. Top quarterbacks, okay?
Oh,
so I'll kick it off. I'll kick it off right now. So
I'm going to track this. Okay, go ahead. Okay.
So the top 5 quarterbacks drafted. We're going to use our league, but if you look at who was drafted in the top 5, it kind of reflects what people were seeing on their websites or their magazines. So whatever you use as your tool, toilet boy, the red binder, the secret red binder that Mr. Roper uses. So Mahomes was taken first overall, and he was the 13th pick in our league. Lamar Jackson was taken 20th in our league, and he was taken second. Dak Prescott was taken third at pick 38. Russell Wilson was taken 4th overall for quarterbacks at 47, and Kyler Murray was taken he was the 5th, taken at 49. And there's 3 honorable mentions that were because these guys, the way they finished, I had to put them in. Watson, he was drafted number 55, the 55th pick. Rodgers was drafted as the 56th pick, and Josh Allen was drafted as the 86th pick. So why did I list those last guys? Because how they finished fantasy-wise in 2020, Rodgers was number 1, Allen was number 2, Mahomes was number 3, Russell Wilson was number 4, and Deshaun Watson was number 5. So a couple of those guys were drafted in the 5th round or late 4. All were drafted. 2 of them were drafted in the late mid-5th rounds, and one of them was drafted in the 8th round. So it was interesting who finished in the top 5. So when you look at those 5 players that finished in the top 5 versus who didn't finish in the top 5, how many people, like, who do you think's going for 2021? If you were going to make the list right now, who are your top 5 QBs?
Do you want me to jump in first?
Yeah.
Based off of now, of course, like we talked about the last couple of weeks, things change, right? We don't even know where Deshaun Watson's going to end up.
Yep,
so
exactly.
Based on what we know now, we're just in Rodgers, right? Does he stay with Green Bay? I mean, there's all these variables, right? But based on what we know right now going into the season, if Watson stays, if Rodgers stays and all that, you can't argue Mahomes is not the number 1 quarter. He's going to be number 1 no matter what. Like, I don't think, unless you're Jarvis and you take Rodgers in the first
That's not
round.
fair. You haven't let me give you my list yet. You cannot tell.
It's like, you
cannot make fun of me until I give you my list.
I'm calling it. So
I agree with Mahomes.
Mahomes number 1. Yep. Definitely, I think Rodgers, the way he's played this year, he seems like he's back. He's rejuvenated. He's number 2. I think Josh Allen is number 3. The way he's been consistent and how great he's been all year. Now, the last 2 might surprise you guys a little bit. I would say Kyler Murray, number 4, because I think he's still improving. I think he's still getting better with DeAndre Hopkins now a year under his belt there. I think they're just going to continue to improve. And I love his running ability. I think Kyler Murray is not at the Lamar Jackson level of running, but he's close. He runs the ball a lot, and he's been able to stay healthy up until this point in his career. And then the 5th guy I still think Lamar Jackson. I think he's still, the way he's performed the last month or so, I think maybe they're just going to let him just take over next year and just say, forget about trying to be too cute in the pocket. Just go out and run and do what you can do and try to get back to that MVP type level. When Lamar Jackson runs for 136 rushing yards it's I just, for me, it's like I would love to have that as a quarterback to go in there. I don't care if he throws for one touchdown pass. Give me 136 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown, and those are big numbers for me. So, yeah, I would say those would be my top 5.
Let me throw a wild card. What if Dak Prescott is back and they say he's healthy? Based on what you saw in that small snapshot before he got hurt.
Well, I'm basing it on I just can't see him coming back healthy enough. Like they might say he's going to come back and be healthy. That was a gruesome injury. I just can't see somebody coming back in time to start the season and be 100% healthy. There's the ACL injury, right, is a big injury for a lot of quarterbacks. And 20 years ago, it was at minimum of a year. Now they've cut it down to like 8 months or so. But when you have the injury that he had on his ankle, where it just bent completely the opposite direction, that hasn't changed at all in terms of how quickly a player can come back. It's going to be some time before we see him again. I don't think we see him play at all next year. I don't even see him playing at all. Never mind half a season or whatever.
I just want to throw it out there. Just would you consider him? But I agree with you. If the injury, he would have to look amazing in training camp for me to feel comfortable taking him in the draft early, because I'd be too nervous that ankle is too banged up and he's going to be limping or not. He's going to be ginger around it, just because he's going to be nervous to get re-injured like that. Because sometimes there's that post-traumatic component of it when you get hurt like that you don't want to get hurt like that again. So you just play a little bit more defensively and tight. So that would be my concern. So Jarvis, you saw Big Meat's list. Do you agree? Where would you
disagree?
Who would you swap out?
I disagree.
All right.
Partially, I'm sure.
No, so wait, I'm going to show you before I reveal the rest that I wrote this down, so I'm not making it up.
Okay, he does have Mahomes number 1.
All right, so Mahomes is number 1.
Okay, because if you didn't have Mahomes number 1, then you lose all credibility.
Allen number 2.
Okay.
Wow.
All right, Josh Allen. Well, I had him at number 3, so we're not too far off there. And Rodgers. Number 3.
Okay.
Close. This is where I'm going off the rails.
So these next two are they're difficult.
Okay, so here's what I quantified. I quantified that Dak Prescott was done, right, because of the injuries. The same thing. I didn't put him on my list. Otherwise, I probably would have argued for him in 4 or 5. I also took Watson off the list because if he's demanding a holdout or whatever, I just
too much uncertainty.
The same thing with the Le'Veon Bell thing. Let COVID boy draft him because he's gonna. He's chiming to get on his team. All right, so here's what I think. So I'll tell you this. My number 4 quarterback is actually somebody who we've not talked about, but set a record. He's a rookie, and I think he's going to kind of be like a little Josh Allen-y. I think he's going to have a huge impact next year.
Okay.
Who's the coach?
It's that guy Staley, right? So it's more about the offensive coordinator. Anyway, I think I actually like the Chargers. Keenan Allen still showed a lot this year. Mike Williams is a big, talented receiver. Hunter Henry still played most of the year and is an effective tight end. All they have to do is address the running back and a little bit of line help, which is easy to do in the draft. And the defense isn't bad. This guy can run. This guy can throw. He stepped in right away and didn't show any issues. And he almost beat Mahomes. You know what I mean? So I saw a lot out of Herbert that I was impressed. He didn't lay many eggs.
Let me challenge you, Jarvis. Let me ask you something. If you were listening to this podcast and you were taking advice, right? And hopefully people are, because this is the whole point of the damn podcast, is that people listen to it and use it for their fantasy research. Where do you think Herbert will go? Average.
So Herbert is going to be. So look, I'm going to use your question and your point earlier to make my answer, and that you named Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Prescott, Wilson, Murray were the top 5 quarterbacks drafted, and then you said Watson, Rodgers, and Allen, who all. Let's see. So Allen finished in the top 5. Watson was just outside of the top 5. If he wasn't in, actually he was in, right? 1, 2.
Yeah, I think he was.
Yeah, he was in the top 5.
He was the 5th. So all three out of the top 5 were drafted in that sweet spot, 5th, 6th round. And if you want to have, so by the way, the 3 quarterbacks you mentioned, Watson, Rodgers, and Allen, I had Rodgers, and Watson and Allen were actually on the same team. Your brother's team had both of them.
Yeah.
So if you want the quarterback in the sweet spot of the draft that's going to provide that championship level numbers, it's going to be Herbert in that 5th round, 6th round spot.
Okay.
So I'm looking at not who's going to. So I know I guess your question was who's going to go top 5 overall. Some idiot's going to take Murray, and some idiot's going to take Wilson, and some idiot's going to take.
We need to do average draft position of these guys because where they go could vary from 3rd, 4th, 5th.
Lamar Jackson. There's another one. Oh my God, somebody's going to reach on Jackson. You want to talk about a career? He's going to go more down the path of Robert Griffin than he is going to go on the path of Pat Mahomes.
Bold. So who's your 5th guy?
Okay, so Herbert, right? So the 5th guy, as I'm sitting here listening, I'm thinking like it's Herbert was my fun pick, right? But so I like you fell for this, Azar. Like how do you look at like Lamar Jackson? The running is what gets him, right? But I think he's due for an injury. He's due to take a big hit. You cannot go this long living the way he lives. He's going to get clocked. Look at Mahomes. He just got clocked. Griffin went way out, right? Like Cam Newton's a shell of himself. All these running quarterbacks get picked off 2, 3, 4 years into their career. I think Jackson's due. So I would say I would put Jackson in there if I'm just going to give you some but if I'm going to give you my advice, my stamp is to stay away from Jackson unless you can get him in the 4th round or later. Kyler Murray, I think the cat's out of the bag on him. He disappeared the second half of the year because defenses figured him out. Don't shake your head. No, I'm going to close the computer on you. You're out of your mind. I don't
think so.
The Patriots figured him out and they sucked.
He didn't. He had a couple of off games.
I don't even want to hear it. Don't even interrupt me with this bullshit rebuttal.
No, now you're wrong. First of all, you're the guy before the season that said Kyler Murray is going to be shit this year, and I was the one saying he's going to be a top 5 quarterback. And where did he finish?
We were both wrong.
He was a top 5 quarterback.
No, he wasn't. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Oh, I thought he was right outside.
Yeah,
so he was 6.
Shove it.
Okay, go look at but he was still top 6.
Azar, can you mute him?
You said he wasn't going to be the top
Jarvis,
6.
I'm looking at his games, fantasy points. Jarvis, like so the second half would be week 8 and beyond.
Yeah.
Week 9, 44 points. Week 10, 32 points. Week 11, 25 points. Week 12 against the Pats you are correct.
Bad game.
Only bad game, 8 points. After that, he rebounded against the Rams defense with 22.
22 is not, 20. I don't give you 22.
22, hold on. But 22, 20, and Philadelphia, he had 40 points, 39 points. Mm-hmm. Where he screwed you is if you were in the championship round, he got 15 points.
And he did. He screwed over Antifa.
That's where you're basing it. So you're talking about a couple of bad games.
I'm talking key spots down the stretch. This kid disappeared. He's got the Russell Wilson effect, who I would put
Russell Wilson disappeared. He's the guy that disappeared.
So if you look, I was going back and forth, and I opted for Wilson because I like DK Metcalf better. But I had Lamar Jackson and Murray in there. Watson and Prescott were off my no list, but it was those 3, and I elected to go with Wilson because I have more faith in Wilson with Lockett and Metcalf than I do with Murray. I truly think that the league is going to start figuring Murray out more and more, and he is also a little guy that's going to get his ass popped because his little 5'5" frame scampering around, he's going to get clocked by some Devin White mofo, and
so Jarvis is saying this because when he was up 70 points, he's got a thing for Kyler Murray. He hates Kyler Murray. He lost in a fantasy game because of Kyler Murray coming back.
I hate Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson more because they had a 3rd and 2 to ice the game and they blew it. And then that led to overtime. And then that led to another 15 points for Murray and Watson and a freaking kicker.
So I would agree with you with Wilson because I love DK Metcalf. I think he's going to be a superstar for years to come. And then you also have Lockett. I think Wilson's developed into that passing quarterback now. Mm. He did truly fizzle out. I'm going to use Azar's words. He did truly fizzle in the second half of the year. He was MVP the first half of the year. And he just completely fell apart in the second half.
Yeah.
But I like his receivers enough. He was the guy I was kind of flip-flopping between Lamar Jackson and Russell Wilson.
And the thing about it, like Hopkins looked phenomenal. He looked reborn, but there was 2 years in Houston where people were writing him off. Like I remember he fell to like the 3rd round one year, he was not considered a top 5 wide receiver for a couple of years. Watson brought him back. Then he had a monster year, and I forget which year Watson started versus which year they broke out as like a quarterback wide receiver, like threat. But then I don't know. I think Hopkins is going to decline for Murray faster than Metcalf and Lockett will decline for Wilson. So give me Wilson next year.
Interesting.
Okay. And watch him fizzle in the second half like you did for
the thing with Kyler Murray, and it's interesting, is if you actually go back and look at fantasy points for quarterback, Tom Brady, touchdown-wise, crushed Kyler Murray in numbers. Like, what saves Kyler Murray is not his passing touchdowns.
No, it
really is his legs.
Yeah,
it's his legs.
12 rushing touchdowns.
Because
right?
if you ranked quarterbacks just based on touchdowns throwing, Tom Brady's number 2, and Russell Wilson's number 3. So it's interesting. It's that running component that Jarvis is talking about that adds that additional element. But I like Wilson because I think, to what Jarvis is saying, I think there's more prone to injury if you're relying on him to get 800 yards rushing and those rushing touchdowns from Kyler Murray, where Russell Wilson can do it on the ground. I mean, it through the air, and DK Metcalf is the wild card that I would give advantage Wilson.
Give us your top 5, Azar.
So I'm actually in agreement. You guys have it. I think that what we're disagreeing on is number 5, and it could either go. See, I like Kyler Murray more than Lamar Jackson. I would take Lamar Jackson out and probably put Russell Wilson in. I think he's just more.
Jackson. Are you going by in that order of? Are you just saying top 5? Order?
I would say I like. So what did Jarvis say? He
said Mahomes, Allen,
and Rodgers.
And I said Mahomes, Rodgers, Allen.
Yeah, I actually think that's how it's going to go. I think the only thing that could hurt Josh Allen is the last mental thing you have. If he chokes in this game, right? If he chokes, I think that's going to be the last mental thought of him, is him choking. And I think Rodgers would go before him. So if Allen puts up a great game against the Chiefs, even if he loses, but it's a competitive game, I think people are going to remember that and say Mahomes, Allen, and Rodgers. I think that's how it would go. And then Kyler Murray, I think I put Wilson over Kyler Murray. I put Russell Wilson just because of the number of throwing touchdowns he has. Even though he fizzled out, I think that's just, I don't know what happened there with the Seahawks. I don't really understand what the fizzle out was caused by. And then I would put Kyler Murray over Lamar Jackson. I just think Kyler Murray, again, I think he just has a more complete game than Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson doesn't seem like he's like Cam Newton sometimes. Like, he can throw the ball and sometimes he can't. And I don't understand why some games he's like that. Like, there's no, like, the end of the season, something happened with Baltimore where Lamar Jackson figured out his passing game. I don't know if it was a health issue they didn't talk about or disclose, but he was connected with Hollywood. We talked about it last time. He was making Hollywood Brown look good. It was a resurgence of Hollywood Brown. He was thrown to Des Bryant, for God's sakes. He has Mark Andrews. There's talent on Baltimore, but where was it the first half of the year? Like, that talent's coming back next year. So why would it be any different in 2021? Because he couldn't do it with that talent around him anyways. Like, I just don't trust him. And I think we talked about that last year before the draft, that we had some concerns about Lamar Jackson. Can he reproduce what he did? He had a phenomenal, magical year. And could he reproduce that? So I'm going with that. I think it's going to be Mahomes, Allen, then Rodgers, Wilson, and Kyler Murray. Those are my top 5 picks right now.
Yeah.
So, I like the Herbert pick. I like that. If Burrow was healthy, I think those are going to be steals later in the draft. Like, if there's going to be a guy that's going to sneak out and be like, wow, he had Herbert and he finished in the top 5, I could see Herbert finishing in the top 5.
Although I got to say that Herbert for the number 4 overall for Jarvis, that's an Andy Reid level type of gutsiness right there.
Yeah.
To call Herbert a second. I loved Herbert this year too. I think he's got a bright future. I think it's a little too early now in his career. He could have that sophomore slump next year. But I'm also pressing the bullshit button because Azar, that in the draft next year, when Mahomes goes and Rodgers is sitting there for Jarvis, you think he's really going to take Josh Allen before he takes Aaron Rodgers?
Oh, that's true.
Come on.
That's true.
No chance. No chance.
So it's safe to say Roper will take Mahomes again for 3 years in a row. He'll keep taking Mahomes, right? Yeah. And he'll be like what Jarvis was. He kept on taking Rodgers until eventually, like, it helped him. But
yes. Well, I'm curious now because Jarvis went away from his second round automatic second round. I'm going to take Rodgers. And he waited this year. He went what, fifth round? I think you took him.
Yeah,
fifth round or fifth.
Not making it to the fifth
Now,
round.
now, are you going reverse? Are you going back to the old times and going second round? Because I think you are. I think you're going second round. Jarvis is going to take him.
We got to see where I draft. Remember, I didn't finish dead last like Roper. I finished in the playoffs, so I could be at number 10 and he could be at number 1.
And
so
it makes valid points because we don't even know if R3 is going to be drafting. We don't know if the Raccoon's going to have another guest. I don't know who he's going to be the next person drafting for him, the mystery guest. So Jarvis, he does have a fair point. Like the only certainty we have is Mahomes will be going early in the second round because Roper, well, yeah, because you know what, Roper, what's going to happen is no one's going to take Mahomes early in the second round, and then Roper is going to be like the number 1 or 2 pick next year, and he's going to say, "Well, I'm going back to back."
And there are people in our league that will draft Wilson, Murray, Allen, and Lamar Jackson. All 4 will get drafted before Rodgers, depending on how things slide and who's drafting where. Majority of our league values those quarterbacks higher than Rodgers. So
I don't know about this year. I don't know about that, John. I think
I'm saying certain people in certain spots I can rely on to not take Rodgers because they would rather one of those quarterbacks.
Because there's one thing that Rodgers has that makes him the sexy pick is Devontae Adams. Right?
I mean, say it was his discount double check when he scores a touchdown.
Yeah, so much discount double checking.
People just want a discount double check every time he scores.
Good.
Yeah.
He was so on another. He threw, what was his total touchdown passes?
48,
and he threw 4 interceptions.
5.
That is an insane ratio.
Yeah, he had a good year.
Insane ratio. I mean,
like
it's just ridiculous.
I
think he had as many as 48. I thought he had 44.
I'm looking at 48 and 5, John.
He had 48. He had 5 interceptions. Are you counting maybe in the playoffs too? Did he throw a pick in the playoff game? I thought anyway, whatever it is, it's a ridiculous ratio. And it's just, I can't see somebody passing on him going into next year and being like, yeah, Rodgers coming off of an MVP type, probably his greatest statistical year in his career, and take him high.
So let me ask you this on the closing thought. Let's wrap up because it is a long podcast, but I want to wrap it up on this point. Josh Allen was taken as the 86th overall pick, 8th round. Lamar Jackson was taken late in the draft in 2019. So I guess that whole theory of chasing the elite quarterback.
And so was Mahomes the year before that.
The year before.
Yeah. Was it Mahomes? Was it Mahomes taking
that?
Shady got Mahomes in like the freaking 15th round or something.
Yeah, there was a year, wasn't Shady, that had Wentz that was drafted. I don't even know if he was even drafted. Like Wentz went undrafted.
Yeah.
Wasn't right? So I'm just wondering.
The year before that.
So when, and we don't have to do it in this segment, but I just wonder, it makes me reassess when I see how people finished. Like when you see all these guys like Watson, Rodgers, and Allen drafted in the 5th round and later, and they come up and they're finishing in the top 5. It makes you rethink, are we over-investing early in the draft to get that stud quarterback? Other than Mahomes might be that one name, but even taking him in the 2nd round, I think it impact your team negatively.
So it's a shift in like philosophy now in the league, though. The league is tailoring towards these style of quarterbacks. I mean, the numbers this year were off the charts when you compare to years past for rushing yards for QBs, rushing TDs for QBs, overall TDs for QBs. The numbers this year were higher than any other year in league history. So if you take that into consideration, they want more quarterbacks being better. The league is pushing quarterback safety, quarterback favoring rules, blah, blah, blah. So all of these quarterbacks are now becoming better because the position was getting too hard when the rules allowed the defense to match them. And they were not talented enough, smart enough, whatever, or the coaches weren't good enough. They're allowing quarterbacks to now become better by giving them more favorable rules. So that's why you get these rookies coming in able to just dominate when that hadn't happened for a long time.
So I guess the interesting thing is
your philosophy is right. If you can wait and you hit that, there's like 1 or 2 every year that come out. If you hit that, you're good. But if you don't wait, and you take one of these guys, you're guaranteed at least that, that dominant quarterback unless they get hurt. But if you wait and you miss, now you're double screwed.
Yeah. Well, the variable thing too is that if you think about the Lamar Jackson when he was taken, he wasn't taken as the starting. He was taken as a backup.
Neither was Mahomes.
Yeah, and Mahomes. And think about this year, Allen was not taken as the starter. Watson was taken as. So it's interesting if you make your investment. Like when I think about that situation, who won the league, he took Watson in the 5th round. 3 rounds later, invested in Allen, which is kind of early for a backup. You went early, but it almost like paid off for him because that was the guy that won him. So if you have a diamond in the rough that you think is going to have a potentially breakout year, you might not want to take him really early, like overreach, but you may not want to wait too long.
Right.
And
so basically what you're saying is he got lucky.
Well, there is. I mean, that is luck. I mean, that is the component of it. I mean, it's good drafting. I mean, you say it's luck, but that's good drafting because he didn't wait on him. He saw an opportunity, he took him, and it paid off. So I'm just
hoping. I was just hoping he listens to this podcast so I can get it right.
Oh, he'll be listening.
But but that was me. Like I've been burned waiting for the quarterback, and I've done it for several years now. I used to be the guy years ago that would take the quarterback high and say, no, give me the guy that's going to give me the most points. And then I would kind of suffer the rest of the draft because I was weaker at certain positions. And I reversed that. And what I've done is I've waited a bit too long at times. And then I get screwed and I don't get, and to hit that diamond in the rough, it's tough to do. I remember the year Mahomes, it was his second year, it was his first year as a starter. I loved him going into Kansas City. I was like, I think there was a quote that Tyreek Hill said, or maybe it was Kelsey, that said that they're going to be the best offense in the league by far. They're going to be unbelievable. And I said, you know what? That's enough for me to draft Tyreek Hill. I think I took him in the 1st or 2nd round that year, or maybe it might have been the 2nd round. And I was going to reach for Mahomes later in the draft, and Mute Boy took him just a little bit earlier than I thought. And I was beating myself up over it. I said I waited too long. I wish I took him as that. I wasn't going to take him as my starter because there's still a risk there, but I wanted him so bad as my backup. And that was the year he had the 50 touchdown pass year. So to your point, I do think don't take a quarterback early, but don't wait too long. Don't. It's just it'll burn you. It'll kill you if you wait. Just if even a round later, I would go a round earlier than what you want to go. Maybe 5th, 6th round. Take your quarterback that you want then. And then maybe if you can hit on that backup QB that emerges, maybe it's, who knows? Maybe next year we're talking about, maybe it's like Tua. However the way you pronounce it. Well, whoever it is, I'm just randomly throwing out a name that, did anybody think that Josh Allen was going to have the type of year this year? Did anybody think that Justin Herbert, who wasn't even the top, it was Burrow, and I think it was Tua was drafted 2nd or 3rd by the Dolphins, and then Herbert was drafted 5th. So he was like the 3rd drafted quarterback. Who thought Herbert was going to have the year that he had this year? So you never know. It could be that quarterback that just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah. So on the last thought, it's interesting because to what you're saying, sometimes in those later rounds, you're scrambling to pick up that crap running back, that crap receiver you're reaching for, just hoping, and most of the times you're dumping those guys anyways, right? And then if you invest, instead of maybe like chasing a hopeful, wishful thinking receiver, sometimes now I'm thinking at it like, man, maybe I should make sure I get that second quarterback because he may be the guy that brings definitely a lot more points, more consistent points as my backup than some dumb receiver that I might end up dumping anyway. So it's just kind of to your point, like if you see that diamond in the rough, sometimes you don't want to wait too long and hope that everybody's going to ignore him because it's a risk you're taking. But so I think I'm going to wrap it up here at 8:30, boys. It's been a long podcast.
Yeah. Gents, it was a pleasure.
Any closing thoughts, Big Meat, before we wrap up?
No, but was this a 2-hour podcast? This might be, this is the longest one yet.
Yeah. And we had 2 topics. Yeah. 2 hours, 2 topics.
Yeah. It was 90% football and 10% WandaVision.
Yeah, well, that's because he was trying to suck us into the Mandalorian talk all over again. He's such a saboteur. So he's got that Antifa
Love the
blood in him.
Mandalorian. Love it.
I'm not knocking it.
All right. So since we got no closing thought, boys, we'll wrap it up. It's a long podcast.
Hey, we almost got sucked into talking about The Witcher. So don't come talking. Don't tell me about
gross
Mandalorian.
Well, or we're going to defend the Game of Thrones because this monkey has never seen it. And he's talking about all these Night Walkers and all this.
Whatever you guys are playing
Yeah.
with Dungeons,
All right. Let's wrap it up.
Dungeons and Dragons. All right,
All
I'm
right.
going to go order Disney Plus.
All right. Until
Good.
next week, boys.
All right. See you guys.